Ambitious YouTube channel. Today's class will learn how to make this beautiful shirt with an open back slit. Okay, so the back has this rope which can be tied if you want, or you can leave it open like this, and then the front is just is a regular shirt, as you can see, and it has this basic sleeve. It's like a high-low shirt, and it's really beautiful and simple to make. This is something you like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. I'm going to start by drafting on a paper first. You can also draft directly on your fabric, but I just prefer to draft it on the paper. So I'm cutting both front and back together. You can see how I folded it. My front has this 2 inches allowance for my button placket, so I measured the 2 inches allowance and I made it into a straight line before folding the back where the 2 inches allowance stops. So the next thing is to start taking our measurements. The first measurement is going to be my shoulder. So my actual shoulder is about 7 inches. That's 14 divided by 2. But if you look at the thumbnail, you notice that the shoulder is a bit dropped. Okay, but I don't want my, you can just add like 2 inches to yours if you want it really down, but I don't want mine to be too much, so I'm just going to add about 1 inch, and that's going to leave me with around 8 inches. So on that point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. For the neckline, remember this is like a turtle neckline, I don't want it too wide as well, so I'm just going to do around 2.75 by 1 inch for the front, for the back, and that is going to be by 3 inches for the front. So here I'm going to connect for my back first, and then from there I'm going to connect my shoulder slope in a diagonal form like this. So the next measurement is my armhole measurement. My armhole is 8 inches. So here I'm going to mark my 8 inches, and then it's going to be a free blouse, so you don't need to shape the waistline, but if you want to shape the waistline as well, you can do that. So here my waist is 16 inches. I have 16 inches here, and then the full length where my blouse is going to stop is 23 inches for the front, and then for the back it's going to be a little lower, so I'm just going to add about 3 to 4 inches to the back, and then I'm going to make it 26 inches. So I'm going to make all of these points into a straight line now. So on my chest line, I'm taking my bust measurement. The bust is 40, divided by 4 is 10. So I'm going to add about half an inch for ease. So I have 10.5 inches, and then I'm going to add 1 inch seam allowance. So I've exhausted my pattern. So here I'm just going to make it without allowance. So when I'm transferring on my fabric, I'll add my necessary allowances. So the waist I'm working with is 30 inches. 30 divided by 4 is 7.5. I'm adding half an inch to that as well for ease, or you can even add up to 1 inch, because I don't want this to be tight at all. Then here you're going to take your hip measurement. The hip is 40 inches as well, so I'm adding half an inch ease to that, and then I'm going to remember this is my front length while this is my back length. So here I'm going to connect my armhole using my cuff roller. Okay, it's not going to be really deep as we have seen, so you can see I just connected it there, and then I'm going to connect my bust to the waist, and then from the waist I'm going to connect to the hip. So if you don't want yours to be fitted, you can just leave it as it is. Okay, so here I don't want to have shortage, so I'm going to connect to the back, and then I'm just going to take that down. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this out. Okay, so I have cut the back. You can see I cut on my back length, and I'm going to modify it for my front. So you can just use your tracing rule to map out where your front length is. Remember, this is the front on the lower part. So for the back length as well, on the side, remember this is the side seam. I don't want it to be straight on the hem, so I just came up by 1 inch on the side here, and then using my curved ruler I'm going to blend it in to the hem like this. So after blending it, I can now trim off the excess that I have here. So like I said, I'm going to use my tracing wheel to mark the length of my front so that I can detach the front and back easily. So you just need to use it to mark that point, and once you open it, it's going to perforate that part for you. So after doing that, now I can cut off my side together with the armhole and the neckline. So now I have cut it off now, and then I'm going to redraw my front length. Okay, so this is going to be the length for the front, and then I'm going to cut it out and also mark my front neckline. Okay, so this is where the 3 inches stops here. I'm going to use my curved ruler to connect the neckline, and then I'm going to mark it into my allowance so that I can cut that out as well. So now the next thing is to open the slit that we have at the back. So like I said, depending on how free you want this blouse to be, you can just take the 40 inches that you have all the way down and not shape anything on your waistline. But I just tried to shape my waistline, and even at that, I added, you can see that I added, my actual waistline was around 7.5 inches. I made this 9 inches. That's adding like 1.5 to the waistline already, so it's also going to be kind of free. So this is my placket allowance for the front. Now I'm going to bring in the back. So for the back, so depending on where you want to break it and the front, I'm going to, you can stop it around your chest line, but I just want to add a little bit of my armhole area. So here I'm going to measure around 6 inches from the shoulder point here, and then I'm going to mark the 6 inches here. So if you want it to be straight, just mark the 6 inches straight like this, and then you cut it off. But because I want it to have some kind of style line, so I'm just going to mark my 6 inches here, and then here I'm going to mark 7 inches, or I just maintain what I have on my chest line, and then from there I'm going to connect like this. So you can see that it's giving me some type of free effect. So I'll cut this part out, and that's going to form my yoke. So when you're cutting this on your fabric, you had your seam allowance to join it to the lower part, and then for the lower part on the hem here, depending on how open you want it to be at the back, I'm going to measure about 3 inches. Remember, this is a half scale, so if you measure 3 inches, it's going to be opened by around 6 inches. So here I'm just going to measure 3 inches. That's fine for me. And then from there I'm going to connect it to the center point where I cut it off there. So using my ruler, sorry, I'm going to connect from the 3 inches here all the way, so I'll get a longer ruler. So from there I'm going to connect from the 3 inches that I went outwards. If you want it more open, you can do 4, you can do 5. That's totally up to you and what you want. So I'm going to connect it. So all of this now I'm going to cut it off, and that is the opening that I'm going to have for my back. So after cutting on your fabric and you assemble it and you feel it's not that open, you can still increase it. So it's better for it to be smaller. It's going to be easy for you to adjust than for it to be too wide. So this is my yoke, and this is the lower part of my back. So now for the front, to shape the hem of the front as well, I'm going to bring the front and back together. You can see the back is lower than the front, and I still need to join them together. So I want to shape the front as well. So here I'm going to come up by about 1 inch for the front, or 1.5 inch also, and then I'm going to connect it to the hem. Okay, so you can connect it using any shape you want, but this is what I chose, so I'm just going to connect it like that. Now I'm going to place my front and back together, and then I'm going to mark that point where I shaped the front, which is here. okay, so that I can sew it together easily. That's how I'm doing this. So on that point, I'm going to reconnect. So when you are connecting, I'm not going to connect like this because I don't want to chop off too much. So here I'm just going to place my ruler in this form, and then I'm going to use that to blend everything in together. So after blending it in, I'm going to bring in my scissors, and then I'll reshape the hem. I hope you understand that. So we have this for the back and this for the front, so you can make the hem look anyhow you want. So now you can see that it's going to be easier for me to just sew them together. So now I'll take this now to my fabric and cut them out on my fabric, and I'll bring it back to show us how we're going to sew this. Okay, so I have gone ahead to cut them on my fabric, and then remember I did not have allowance on the side, so I just added my 1.5 inches seam allowance on the side. So this is the front. On the placket area I notched it so that I can know where to create my placket. And then this is the back, so this is the lower side of the back where I opened it as well. I added 1/2 inch allowance so that I can turn it in neatly, and then on the upper part I added 1/2 inch so that I can sew the yoke back to the main body. So you can see I added 1/2 inch on the yoke as well. So now the first thing I'm going to do is to create my placket. So to create my placket, what I'm going to do now is to fold this in like 1/2 inch here, to fold it in, and then I'm going to fold again to meet where my placket is. You can see the way I folded it. So after folding it, I'm going to sew it down. You can sew it on both sides to give you that fine effect. So I'll go ahead now and sew it to both of my front pieces. Remember I have two front pieces, and then I'll bring back to show us what I have created my placket, and this is what it looks like. You can see how neat it is looking. So this is the first one, and this is the other one. So now the next thing is for me to work on the back. I'm just going to hold the placket area with pins first. So for the back, this is the back. So now I'm going to put it on fold and then notch the midpoint. You can place your rope anywhere you want, but I just want mine to be around the midpoint area. So now I'll notch that point. So after notching it now, I can remove my pattern. So I have already created the rope that I'm going to use for this. So I have two ropes already. So now the next thing is for you to sew the rope on this point that you notched. Okay, so after sewing it now, I'm going to use my bias to turn it inwards so that all these rough edges is going to be neat. So the rope is just going to be neatly tucked in like this. So you sew one to this side, and then you sew another one to this other side, so that by the time you open it out, okay, so remember we created like a V shape here. So this is what it looks like. I'm just going to place my rope here and sew, and then I'll place my rope here and sew as well. So at this point, if the opening you have is not wide enough for you, you can broaden it before you add your rope, but I'm okay with what I have here. I like it like this, so I'm just going to go ahead and fix my rope to this. So I have created the rope. You can see my two ropes have been sewn. So now I'm going to bring it together on the upper part. Now you can interlock it if you left that allowance like this, so that it can overlap a bit, and then I'm going to bring the yoke, and then I'll go ahead and sew the yoke to the lower part just like this. Okay, so I'm going to sew it now. Remember I left 1/2 inch allowance to sew it. So now since my armhole now is now shorter, so I'm just going to retrim it like that. So I'll place it like this, and then I'm going to sew the yoke. So after sewing the yoke, I'm going to place the front and back together, then I'll sew it on the shoulder as well as the side seam. So I'll do this and bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so the yoke is sewn. As you can see, I've joined the yoke to the upper part, and then I just top stitched on it so that I can lay flat. So you just need to set it on this side, and then I went ahead to sew it on the side. So you can see my front is lower than the back. Okay, and then I blended it well so that sewing it is going to be easy for me. So after that, I just cut out a normal basic 3/4 sleeve, and then I just fixed it to it. So if you don't know how to cut a basic sleeve, the tutorial is already on the channel. so that's why I did not bother to add that. So now I'm going to turn this to the right side so that we can see what it looks like. So turning it to the right side, now this is what I have. So the last thing you need to do now is to, you can see the ropes that we have here to tie it. So the last thing you need to do now is to measure around the neckline so that you can fix your collar to it. So the measurement you have around your neckline is what you're going to use to cut out your collar. It can be a basic collar or a standard shirt collar. It can also be a bishop collar, whatever collar that you wish to have. And then here you fix your button and your button hole placket as well. So this is what it looks like. So now I'm just going to take it to the mannequin to show us what the result looks like. Then after that I can decide on the type of collar that I wish to fix to this. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the mannequin. You can see it's just a basic sleeve that was attached to it, and then the buttons attached to the placket. So now I'm going to turn it to the back so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is the back. You can decide to tie it at the back, or you can just loosen the rope, whichever one is fine for you. So when you're losing your rope, this is what it looks like. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorials. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.